The following is a sponsored program paid for by First Alliance Credit Union. Welcome to Good Money Moves, featuring Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union and Andy Brownell. Here's Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk, 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Welcome to Good Money Moves. I'm Andy Brownell, along with Jenna Taubel, the Director of Brand and Digital Member Experience with First Alliance Credit Union. Hello, Jenna.
Hey, Andy.
Last week on the program, we talked about financial lessons that you can learn from a Charlie Brown Christmas special. What topic is on the agenda today?
We are almost at the end of the year. And while I know, okay, where did it go, right? And while we're celebrating the winter holidays, we're also starting to think more and more about the new year. So I thought today I'd share some tips with our listeners about how to prepare financially for the upcoming year.
I still can't believe it's going to be 2024.
I know.
It just amazes me that time is flying by that fast.
Yeah.
It's a great idea, though. We have a few weeks to get ourselves there. I think everyone, I think it's human nature, right? The passing of another year is, a lot of our thoughts go to what we can do to make it better. And preparing your finances is probably a key to getting that all done. What's the first tip?
Now, this first tip is going to sound familiar to any of our regular listeners, and that is to review your budget / spending plan.
Imagine that.
Yeah, we do cover this a lot, but it's true. A budget might just be the most useful financial tool that you can have, but it has to be current to be effective. So during the holiday season, take some time to look over your budget. See if there are any categories in which you've overspent, and whether that's due to extenuating circumstances or whether it's something, you do every month, right? It just takes some time to look at it. For instance, if you overspent in groceries in November and December, it could be because you had to buy extra groceries for a Christmas dinner, or you hosted Thanksgiving, right?
Sure.
But, it happens.
Oh, especially around the holidays.
Yeah. So, but, let's face it, groceries also have gotten expensive in the last year or two. So it's not unlikely that you're spending more than you used to either. And you can also take this time to see if there are any budgeting categories in which you don't spend as much as you think you were going to. So if you've put a budget together previously and you're maybe not spending as much money in gasoline because maybe now you work from home a few days a week, for instance, you can maybe reallocate some of that money to set aside for new clothes or something fun, or put it towards those groceries that you now are more expensive, right? So from there, you can start to adjust your budgeting categories, and you can use the money you're not spending on those clothes or that gasoline and put it towards, again, groceries, for instance. So if your income also has changed throughout the year, which hopefully you got some kind of a raise throughout the year, you'll also want to reflect that in your budget. So if, let's say, you got a raise for a new job that pays more, and you can figure out where you want that money to be spent to help you manage your day-to-day and meet your financial goals.
So in essence, we're kind of eliminating the glitches and more or less looking at the general trend.
Right.
So if I go back 6 months and I see that every single month I'm spending $25, $30, or $50 more on groceries than I had anticipated, that's something I need to make an adjustment for.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all about just taking a minute to really review, where am I spending money on a regular basis, and is that where I think I was actually going to spend the money or not? And If not, then just adjust those expectations so that as you continue to move forward, well, I really don't have a lot of control over how much is being spent here, but if I cut back a little bit here, I can maybe use those funds to do this other thing that I really want to do or it's more important to me.
Or put it
Now,
in the savings, right?
exactly, yeah. Put it
Okay.
towards a savings goal or whatever is important to you. Now, everyone thinks that budgeting is tedious and it's boring, but in reality, there's something exciting about making sure your finances are optimized. Now, some of you may not relate to this analogy, but I think it's a helpful one, right? If you like video games, think about budgeting like you're optimizing a character to face the next stage in that game, only you're doing it in real life with your money. It's like deciding which feats and skills are most important, but you're doing it with your money. You're optimizing. So if you want to gamify the budgeting experience even more, there are a lot of, budgeting tools and apps that can help make that process easier for you. And those include things like the My Money tool that's free for First Alliance Credit Union members in both our online banking and our mobile app that you have access to.
And that takes, when you talk about the tedious part, that takes the tedious part out.
Yes.
Because you don't have to do the inputting part of it.
Yeah, it's a set it and forget it. And you don't forget it. You check it.
No.
Set it and check it. Set it and check it.
Don't forget about it. Are you a gamer?
I am not. My children would love me to be, I think, but I'm really not.
Yeah, I missed out on that. I mean, I played video games and pinball when I was young. I think, I don't know. I'm old enough that even, I tried Super Mario Brothers and that back in the day, but I was,
Yeah. No, my kids beat the pants off me in every video game I've ever tried to play with them. So I think they will invite me to play just so that they can win, I think is.
Sure. Yeah. Just show how inept mom is, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Me.
Okay, what other tips do you have as we head towards 2024?
Yeah, I think the next important tip is to make a plan to repay your debts. Now, this is especially important because people do tend to get into debt over the holidays. And according to a Harris poll, over half of Americans went into debt due to holiday shopping. Debt is one of the biggest drags on your finances, and the sooner you can pay off that debt, the more money you'll have freed up to reinvest into your budget in other areas.
I read a statistic this week, Jenna, about the holiday debt that I think it was somewhere north of 25%, between 25 and 30% of Americans still have debt from last Christmas and the holidays.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe it. Yeah. Yeah, it's huge. It's probably going to be even bigger this year because everything is just so much more expensive. Fortunately, there are several ways that you can get out of debt. And I think, the traditional way is to kind of look for extra money in your budget and just throw it all at your debt as much as you can. And as you pay off each debt, then you use that money to pay off the next debt and the next debt, right? That kind of snowball or avalanche method, depending on what direction you want to go. And, start for a lot of people, it's really motivating to start with the smallest debt first and then the largest debt first for other people, or, the debt with the highest interest rate first, right? It's really whatever is motivating for you. There's not necessarily a right or wrong way to do it. However, you can also look at, if it's feeling really unmanageable, you can also take out a debt consolidation loan for the amount of all your debts. Let's say you spread that holiday spending across multiple credit cards and it's just too much to keep track of. You can kind of take out a single consolidation loan and pay all that off at once and then slowly make those payments over the life of that loan. The nice thing about debt consolidation loans is, it does reduce your payments, again, down to one instead of many. And if your, debt's on like a credit card, like I said, you'll actually save money most likely because you'll end up with a much lower interest rate on a fixed loan, like a debt consolidation loan versus a revolving credit, like a credit card.
And I think the other advantage to it is it has an end date. As you pointed out, it's fixed.
Yeah. Yep. At that end date is important. You know exactly when you'll be out of debt and you can't add more to it. So, I think one of the best parts about getting debt free is that you can then go back to your budget and see how you can best use that money, right? You can use it to fund a fun goal for yourself. Maybe you want to go on a vacation or go to a concert or go on a shopping spree, right? Whatever floats your boat. You can use it to fund a category you'd like to put more money into, like clothes, going out to eat, those sorts of things. Or you can just sock it away into a savings, an emergency fund, and use it for a rainy day or an emergency situation. So get out of debt. That's a huge thing.
That's when it gets fun.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
When you get the debts paid down and you start making, instead of going, oh, I can cover this much, all of a sudden you have extra because you're no longer being dragged down by those debt payments.
Exactly.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break. This is Good Money Moves. Jenna Taubel with First Alliance Credit Union. We're talking about preparing financially for the new year. And we'll continue after this on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good Money Moves continues in moments with Andy Brownell and Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union. This is News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM. We're talking Good Money Moves with Andy Brownell and Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union on Rochester's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Welcome back to Good Money Moves. Andy Brownell along with Jenna Taubel with First Alliance Credit Union, getting prepared for the new year financially. And during that last segment, Jenna, you were describing ways that we can get ahead of our debt and pay off our debt, repay it, and being debt free. It is awesome.
Yes.
It is one of the better feelings you can have. What else should someone be thinking about concerning their money as far as entering a new year?
Yeah, so I think a really important goal for people to have as we go into the new year is to build up or start an emergency fund. And this is so important because unexpected expenses are one of the surest ways to derail your finances. You could be on the best track to paying off your debt only to have something unexpected come up and you have to basically add right back onto it to cover those costs. And so your best protection against that is that having that emergency fund. And again, we've talked about before the importance of an emergency fund and that the ideal amount you should have in your emergency fund is anywhere between 3 to 6 months worth of salary. So take a look at what you're setting aside each month for your emergency fund now, and it could be zero. And if you do have some extra room in your budget, you should really be putting it into some kind of emergency fund. Even $25 a month is going to be better than no dollars a month. Now, of course, if you don't have an emergency fund, this is the perfect time to start, right? New year,
Right.
New you, get started, start those new habits now. And really, if you can start to set aside 10% of your paycheck each month, you're going to be off to a great start. But again, if you can't afford that amount, that's okay. Pick something you can save comfortably, even if it means you start by putting $5. Right? Just get in the habit of putting that money away. That's a great way to get started. And the key is really just making those regular contributions, whatever that dollar amount is that you come up with.
A few weeks ago, when we were talking about insurance and the deductibles that go along with health insurance policies, and those deductibles continue to grow, it seems, every year.
Yeah.
Having that emergency fund set aside makes those deductibles that much less nerve-wracking. You could actually look at it in a way and say, if I'm willing to accept this higher deductible, I'm lowering my monthly premiums because I know I'm stopgapped. I know that emergency fund is there if I end up having to use that deductible for some reason.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Andy. That's a great way to kind of look at getting started too. I mean, because for a lot of people looking at that 3 to 6 month worth of salary, that can be a really big number to try to attain. So maybe aiming something lower at like, well, my car insurance deductible is $500. So I'm going to save $500 so that if I
Yeah.
get in a car accident and have to cover this, I have that money and I don't have to worry about it. So
And then
that's a great point.
and if you look at your health insurance or your car insurance and look at how much lower your premium is by taking the higher deductible, take that difference and use that as your emergency fund payment every month
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
a portion
Another
of it.
great idea.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways that you can kind of go about this. And again, really it's what's motivating for you and what makes sense to you and your finances. But I think another really important thing too is if you are someone who has been saving for a while and you've built up a really nice emergency fund already, this time of year is maybe a great time to assess the type of account you want that money to be sitting in, right? For most people, you're going to start off with that traditional savings account, which makes perfect sense, right? But once you've got that money built up in there, right? Let's say you've got $2,000, $3,000 saved, look at something that might give you a little bit higher interest rate, like a money market account, for example, is going to give you a little bit better interest rate so you can kind of continue to build on that emergency fund without having to even try as much. Or if you really have built up, let's say you've attained that 3 to 6 month amount of money in your emergency fund, you can consider putting a portion of those funds into something like a CD where you once again get an even higher rate. Obviously, the downside to that is you're locking up those funds for whatever term that CD is. You won't be able to access it. But it's a great way to continue to earn money and put those idle funds to use for you and continue to build on that emergency fund. And there's, again, lots of ways to go about that. But
And this is a great way for me to show off how much I've learned from doing this program with you. You can ladder your
yes,
CDs.
you can. Yes, you can.
And that way you can have access to your money when you need it, but still get the high rates.
Yeah, we did a whole episode about CD laddering earlier this year, and we actually just put out a brand new video on our YouTube channel that gives a high level overview of those as well. So that is a great way to just make CDs work for you without tying up all of your funds at once. Absolutely.
Excellent. And having that emergency fund, what it does, it just stacks the odds in your favor as you head to the new year. You've got that peace of mind with that cushion.
Mm-hmm.
What other advice do you have for us?
Yeah, so another great thing to do this time of year is check your credit score. This is very easy to do. It used to not be so easy to do. It is now, especially if you're a member of First Alliance Credit Union. You get your credit score for free from our online and mobile banking platform. There's, of course, other services out there as well that you can look into, things like Credit Karma and whatnot. There's so many of them. But you can also get, and a lot of people don't know this, so you can get a copy of your credit report for free from each year. From each of the credit reporting bureaus. And this is a great time of year to just take advantage of that and check for errors on your report, especially if you anticipate in the coming year that you may need to buy a new car, you're thinking about buying a house, you may want to use a loan for a vacation or something like that. You're going to want to make sure that your credit is in good order. And so now is a great time to kind of assess where that's at. And on top of that, knowing your credit score is also important for more reasons beyond just qualifying for a loan, right? Many landlords like to check for potential renters, their credit scores, since having a lower credit score, they say might indicate that you may have issues paying rent. And in fact, if you're applying for a job, your potential employer might do a soft pull on your credit score to see where you're at. And if you don't have a good credit score, you may not get that job, especially if you're working in the financial sector. So if your score is not as high as you would like it to be, which anything above 720 is considered excellent. There are ways to improve it, right? Prioritizing paying off your debts, like we talked about earlier in the show, and just making sure your bills are paid on time, right? So there's things that you can do to improve that if it's not looking like what you want it to.
All right. So know your credit score heading into the new year. And that's on topic, not the credit score, but being prepared financially for the new year on Good Money Moves. I'm Andy Brownell with Jenna Taubel with First Alliance Credit Union, and we'll be right back on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good Money Moves continues in moments with Andy Brownell and Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union. This is News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM. We're talking Good Money Moves with Andy Brownell and Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union on Rochester's News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
It's Good Money Moves. I'm Andy Brownell. Jenna Taubel is here, First Alliance Credit Union, and we're preparing our finances for the new year and have covered a whole bunch of different ways to do that. Are there any other ways?
Yes. Yeah, the next thing I would encourage everyone to do as they prepare their finances for the new year is to review your financial goals, right? Take a look at what your financial goals are. See if you don't have any, what would you like them to be? And kind of start to gauge if you do have some and you maybe didn't hit your goals from this past year, how close are you? What do you need to do to kind of get across the finish line still? If you don't have any, now is a great time to set some for yourself and start to think about how you'll attain those goals, right? And a really great way to make sure that you're attaining your goals and either start setting goals or even figure out how to get yourself back on track, either way, is using SMART goals. We talked about this many times on the show, but it's a great framework to use to set goals, not financially, yes, but also for anything else you want to do in life, to be quite honest. So SMART goals it just means specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. And the nice thing about this framework is it sets up your goals so that you can see how far either off track you might be, or if you're trying to get back on track, you'll have a better idea of what steps you need to take to get moving again. Maybe it's just that you need to figure out a payment or two that's different, or you maybe need to up how much you're saving or something like that, depending on what that financial goal is for yourself. But it also helps you kind of reassess, well, was my goal even realistic in the first place? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe you were too aggressive with your goal and you need to reset. And maybe you need to give yourself a little bit more time to reach that goal. And that's okay, right? It's really just taking the time to really look at, where am I? Am I on track? Am I not? Why and why? And again, if you have never set financial goals for yourself, using that framework is a great way to set yourself up for success from the get-go.
I only recently tried this. I've heard the message numerous times over the years, but we have decided to try to pursue a major home improvement down the road. Mm-hmm. And it worked so beautifully for that.
Yeah.
Because after mapping out when and what, and then it laid out exactly how much money I have to put away every month to get there. Mm-hmm. And then you can decide is it realistic? And yeah, you know what? For the time frame it is. So we're like, you want a good feeling. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and what a great way, especially if you take time to do this with your significant other, right? To get on the same page and have something you're both working towards. That is such a great relationship building tool as well.
Fantastic information, Jenna, as always. Mm-hmm. And I know there's a lot more information we can tap into. Maybe you can point us in the right direction.
Absolutely. I always encourage our listeners to visit our website, firstalliancecu.com. You can subscribe to our blog. We release new financial tips and advice every week. You can find out more information about preparing for the new year, like how to get financially fit, how to set money-based New Year's resolutions, and even more information about setting financial goals in general. And of course, we reference several past episodes in the show today. You can listen to those at firstalliancecu.com/podcast or on krocnews.com. You can also subscribe to Good Money Moves on Apple, Google, and Spotify podcasts. And if you love our show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. If you have a financial topic that you would like us to cover or questions you would like answered on Good Money Moves, please send me an email at marketing@firstalliancecu.com. I would love to hear from you. And of course, I strongly encourage you to reach out to our team at First Alliance Credit Union. They're here to help you start making good money moves today.
That is First Alliance Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA and an equal housing lender. Jenna, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I feel all prepared for the new year.
Great.
Oh, actually, I have a lot of work to do. But okay. Well, we'll talk again next week and tackle another Good Money Moves topic. This is Good Money Moves on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.